Give me your take as to like what are the domestic implications. I mean, let's assume just for the moment that, and I think the Biden administration did say like, first thing we do is make sure this doesn't widen into a greater conflict. And then once we've contained that in such a way, and it's unclear to me that they have, or that they feel that they have, then they start to look at the internal workings between Israel and Gaza and Israel and Hamas. But that like we just need to make sure that no other players on the board are essentially moving or making any moves around this that could widen the conflict. But in terms of the way it's been received domestically, what's your sense of it? Because there's definitely a change, at least within generationally.
Do we have that poll? Yeah, I just sent you. This is really, I think, key for us to look at. And no poll is going to tell us a full story, but this was on CNN. This is a CNN SSRS poll taken from October 12th to 13th. So so this is, I mean, this may have gone up, honestly, because this was a week ago. But you see here, 18 to 34-year-olds, that's the level of approval of Israel's military response to Hamas being fully justified, 27%. Then you go to 35 to 49-year-olds, 44%, 50 to 64-year-olds, 56%, and 65 plus, 81%. And I from just anecdotally, like younger people, younger Jewish people that I know are much more in opposition to the way that Israel has responded versus the way their parents have reacted. That's just what I've heard from people in my life. But to see that backed up a little bit more by polling and data, you know, Biden has to be careful with this, because this is going to be a galvanizing issue, I think, for young people. And the way public opinion is shifting so rapidly on this, it's unprecedented. And also, there are sizable Muslim populations in states that are incredibly important in 2024, like Michigan, where, you know, I've seen people commenting on that. Biden has to be careful that they don't sit out based on this response if he chooses to continue to go down a road of unequivocally supporting Israel no matter what. And there's still a lot of time in between that. But I just that poll was very striking to me. It gives you hope at a certain level, but also spells potential political trouble, I think, for the Democrats.
There was another poll, CBS News YouGov, 57% support sending humanitarian aid to Palestinians in Gaza, and 48% send weapons and supplies to Israel.
Well, I should say, I mean, just also in that CBS poll, 72% of Gen Z and millennial under 30 sympathize with a lot with or somewhat with the Israeli people. 69% sympathize with the Palestinian people. So you had almost the same. But when you get to seniors, there's a 30-point divide. 64% sympathize with Palestinians. 93% sympathize with the Israeli people. I mean, there's a change here, and it is this gulf is widening. I mean, frankly, there's something that I think I was saying was obvious 10 years ago, but how do you think this plays out domestically, Heather?
Well, it's very difficult to predict this. It's exactly what you guys have been talking about. I mean, Emma, you're absolutely right, and I don't think there's any doubt that this is a real sea change in, you know, as far as the younger generation seeing this in very differently than people of my generation. Who just sort of reflexively always would back Israel regardless in situations like this. And, you know, there's a historical reason for that. There's a lot of, kind of experience, I think, that leads people to sort of sympathize with Israel's situation, not just in terms of this terrorist attack, but in terms of history, and which may seem a lot more immediate maybe to older people than it does to young people. Having said that, though, I mean, this has been a long time coming. This and the fact that young people are far more sympathetic, I think, to the Palestinian cause and see it in a very different light. I mean, they see it as, colonialism. I mean, this is sort of falls in with their historical perspective on pretty much everything. So there's not really any mystery on why that's happening. And it kind of is a shame, in my view, why Hamas decided to do such a horrific terrorist attack, because to me it kind of sets them back. It sets the Palestinian cause back in some ways, in the minds of many people who I think were coming around to that, into a larger majority that were sort of being sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, because Netanyahu is such an ass, and he was showing so clearly to many people, liberals in America, who might have reflexively been, Israel do or die, we're starting to think, hey, maybe we need to rethink that relationship. And it was starting to, I think, have some traction here in America. I can't really speak for the rest of the world. Having said all that, if you look at the domestic situation, how that's going to play out, I think that you cannot take out of the equation the presumptive Republican nominee for president, who is going to be Donald Trump. And I don't think that any Muslim or Arab American or anybody who looks at what that guy's going to have on offer for them is going to be very pleased with that, or not understand the absolute necessity of keeping him from becoming president, and which is going to be the motivation for a lot of people, I think, in this coming election. It's just, you're looking at a choice between the two. So when you see what, Trump is very confused on this, and I think that it's true for a lot of people on the right, and they do not know where they stand anymore on virtually anything when it comes to national security or foreign policy. Trump has really, kind of upended their just traditional hardline hawkish view. Many of them very pro-Israel. If you look at the Fox News, you see nothing but hawkish bellicosity. Let's go in there, level Gaza, all the usual awful stuff that you hear from those people. But Trump, you'll notice when the story first broke, his first instinct was to come out, and he griped and whined about Netanyahu treating him badly, and how he had a personal beef with Netanyahu. You could see he didn't quite know where he was going to come out on this, not because he has any sympathy for the Palestinians, mind you. No one should ever have any thought that he is someone who is sympathetic to their cause. But he has sort of staked his name on this America First idea, not being for forever wars. Everything's a financial transaction for him. Something like this doesn't really fit in with his worldview very well. He doesn't quite know what to do. He likes just to go after Muslims, and he hates Iran, and et cetera, et cetera. But, he's so ignorant. He doesn't really understand what the real dynamics are there. And his people are having a hard time with this too. I saw some interviews that really struck me. They're all going, well, we don't want another forever war in the Middle East. We don't want to be involved, which kind of shakes up the dynamic a little bit with this whole thing. I mean, I'm not quite sure where that comes out, but I can say that you saw Rand Paul, he voted against, one of the funding bills. There's a faction within the Republicans that's in a different place, and it largely has to do with Donald Trump. And Trump's answer to this, after he stumbled, he really was a stumble. He got a lot of criticism for what he said, griping about his own personal petty grievances against Netanyahu in the wake of a horrific terrorist attack. But, he did back off on that. And his answer to this is going to be to absolutely go after American Muslims in general. And he has said that he is going to reinvoke the Muslim ban that he had and make it twice as much. And now he's talking very seriously about deportation. So that is what we're talking about when we talk about Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. And, again, it's not ideal, but this is the reality that we're dealing with in American politics.
And let's make this clear too. It's not just Donald Trump. Do you have that clip from the Heritage Foundation?
Right.
This is the
scary,
the premier conservative think tank in the country. And this is what they put out. Lest people think that this, Donald Trump came out of thin air and didn't sort of like get developed by the right.
The left is calling for resettling Palestinians in the U.S. Here's why that should be rejected. The Biden administration has been the arsonist that burned down our humanitarian border and immigration system. Consequently, America now faces growing terrorist threats within our homeland. The Afghan evacuees the Biden administration flew directly to the U.S. after recklessly withdrawing from Afghanistan proved that. We can't vet a population against a database that doesn't exist from a Hamas leadership with which the U.S. neither has diplomatic relations nor trust. The many sizable pro-Hamas demonstrations in the U.S. in the past week have shown us that the Palestinian population has no interest in assimilating into American culture and governance, or in expressing loyalty to America or our allies. To import a population of Palestinians would be certain suicide for Americans.
I mean, one watches that and it has to wonder,
My God.
what's their metric for success? Like, how many other, 6-year-old Palestinian kids need to be stabbed by some lunatic for them to say to their funders, like, it worked. The thing that we put out worked. We should also just say there's a fundamental difference in terms of Palestinians being given refuge anywhere else as opposed to Afghans. Afghans have an Afghan passport. They have a right to return to Afghanistan. The moment that a Palestinian is essentially ejected from where they live, they have no right to return because they have no passport, because they are basically citizenless. And that's the way it's been for these people for 75 years. And that's why the issue of a right to return to the country is there. I mean, I don't want to get too deep into that at this moment, but
can I just make one observation too about
please.
that heritage thing that just struck me so much? Look who they used as their spokesperson for that particular message. A blonde woman, as European looking as you can get, and
Aryan.
Aryan looking. Wasn't going to say it, but I'm glad you
I'll
did.
say it.
I was just the minute that I saw that, I went, "Oh my God!" I mean, they're not even trying to hide this stuff anymore. I mean, this is just right up front, and it was absolutely sent a chill down my spine when I saw that thing.
The
It's gonna be
loyalty
very
part.
ugly.
The
Oh.
loyalty, no way to vet their loyalty or whatever she said there. I mean, that, like, I saw Peter Beinart made this point on Twitter. I've been all over Twitter over the past 2 weeks, like, in response to that Heritage Foundation clip. This was a lot of the same tropes that were deployed against Jews who were fleeing the Nazis, and the United States saying we don't want to take them. Like, this is we don't know what their loyalty is. They may have a dual loyalty here. That's one of the oldest anti-immigrant racist tropes imaginable, and it's now being applied to Palestinians.
Absolutely, and just terrifying that they're being so aggressive about it. And as you say, Sam, it just shows this is part and parcel of their pitch for 2024, and it has to do with immigration, it has to do with racism, it has to do with now this has played right into it, this dynamic in the Middle East, and it's going to be very, very ugly, and uglier, I think, than we anticipate.
Oh gosh, yeah.